Hi, I'm and I help people with their breakups. And today we have 7 financial red flags in a relationship. Let me know in the comments if you like the idea of having top 7, top 5, top 10, kind of organizes things for you. And this is actually a big one. This is actually a really big one. I think that even if you're not in a relationship right now where you have issues with finances with your partner, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, I think knowing about this from the get-go actually helps. So it puts you in a position where you don't feel like, oh, why is this happening? Because what happens is a lot of times, what I'm about to talk about, people just complain about it. They don't find it to be a red flag. It's almost like when they go out to lunch with their friends or something like that. It's like, oh, she did it again. She went out and bought a car and didn't ask me. She's been shopping online and she ran up my credit card to 10 grand. I've had guys come on the live chat before on live streams and say they're $10,000 in credit card debt from their girlfriend buying stuff online. One guy said that she bought multiple pairs of Jordan shoes, which very attractive, by the way, that were hard to find, right? Scarce, and spent 2 grand on 2 pairs of shoes online. And he's complaining about that. And the question becomes, what are you doing? Right? Like, are you do you have no power in that situation? You can't put your foot down and say no. So knowing these red flags and being prepared for them is important. And a lot of times when you hear these, you'll go, oh, that's happened to me. Always remember this. You have a choice. Can you say no? You have more power in the situation than you know. People go around telling everyone, oh, they did this to me. They did that to me. What did you do? Take it. All right, let's get into it. So, 7 financial red flags in a relationship. Number 1, you pay for everything and it's not your pleasure to do so. So, let me be specific about that. If you pay for everything, you have the ability to pay for everything. And it's your pleasure to do so because you take care of your woman, because you make so much money, have so much money that it doesn't matter to you. Good for you. I'm totally fine with that. People from the outside, spectators will say, oh my God, I can't believe how much you spend on your wife or your girlfriend. Or maybe even it's the opposite. Maybe it's the woman spending money on the man. If it's not your pleasure to do so, you're creating covert contracts, which means I'm buying these things, but I want you to cooperate later. I'm buying these things for you, but I'm going to control the relationship. Now, the way I worded this, you pay for everything. Let's flip this and say that you're the person in the relationship where they pay for everything. That's also a financial red flag for yourself because you're highly dependent. You're highly dependent on that other person. And if for some reason they lose their job, they lose their wealth, or they start saying no, then you've put yourself in a really bad position. Okay? So anytime one person pays for everything, it's got to be their pleasure to do so. It's got to be not a problem to them. They got to be a generous person by nature. And there's people out there like that. I've met them before. And it doesn't mean they're bad with money. There's people out there that are extremely generous because they always believe they're going to make a lot of money. I've worked with people like this. They always buy lunch. They always get things. And they don't want anything extra from you. That's just how they ride. That's just how they roll. There's not a lot of people like that, but there are some. Number 2, they work at a job with low pay because it's easy, not fulfilling. And they complain about it. Okay. So you have a girlfriend, you're starting to date, and she's got this job. And from the outside in, you're like, wow, it's low pay, right? She could do better. But you don't say anything because you're attracted to her and you want the relationship to go. But you have your judgment there. Fine. You're just dating. But as you get deeper and deeper into the relationship, You realize that she's just at this job because it's easy and it's not fulfilling. Now, let me give you some examples of this. First of all, I'm talking about low pay because on the opposite end of this, people can work at a job that's high pay, that's also not fulfilling, but they can validate that job by saying, well, I get paid a lot. In the end, usually, not always, depends on people's morals and values and how they roll. In the end, if they have a high-paying job that's not fulfilling, they're going to complain a lot also. But we're talking about financial red flags. If someone is in a job of low pay, even extremely low pay, and this especially applies if you live in an expensive part of the world that requires you to make more money to live there. There's places like that, San Francisco Bay Area, New York City. These kind of places, it's going to be more difficult if you make low pay, if you have a low salary, okay? Now, if you have a low salary in lieu of having a fulfilling job, well, that's a plus because that person is going to be happier. They're going to be better to be around. It's going to motivate you. And usually the fulfilling jobs are something that helps people. So a kindergarten teacher, they probably don't pay a lot. Preschool teacher, someone that works at the Humane Society or a zoo. I've met people like this. They're very fulfilled at their jobs. They don't make a lot. They work at a charity. Okay. That's okay because you're going to be with someone that's in a good mood, that's giving, that's outgoing. But if you're with someone that's at a job washing dishes, and by the way, not putting anyone down for any job. I've had some jobs that were pretty low before. I've done some vacuuming. I've cleaned some toilets. Okay. I've done some jobs. I worked since I was 16 years old, right? Actually 11. I had a paper out for 2 or 3 years. Totally fine. The problem is if someone's there for 5, 6 years, they complain about it, but really they're just there because it's easy. Now, if they're in that mode and it's easy just because they know what to do, this is a financial red flag because if you make more money, they're going to lean on you while complaining about what they do and how they make low pay. It's a double whammy. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Number 3, this one's a big one. Their family or one family member is always needing to borrow money. This is usually the case if their family member's a drug addict, alcoholic, and your partner can't say no because it's family, it's blood, and they're good at asking for money. There's some people out there that come up with some creative narratives, stories that create a lot of pity. And if it's someone's sister or brother, father or mother, it's really hard to turn that down. And you can become the bad guy by saying no. And the minute you say no, the parent or the sibling that wants to borrow the money is going to create stories about you. So once you say no, it's a domino effect. They have to say no and lose face with their family member. And the thing is, once you start saying yes in the beginning of the relationship, let's say that you're dating and you're just going to get married, right? And it's a week before the wedding and the dad hits you with, I need to borrow 10 grand to keep my business afloat. That's going to be a pretty tough thing to say no to. Now, here's the problem. Where does it end? It's one thing to let someone that's your family member borrow money. It's another thing to let them borrow money that you don't think they can pay back, or is this going to be a habit, right? So you need to keep tabs on that. And I know a lot of people that have been in relationships like this and they just complain about the family member. But really, the seed of this is the first time the money's asked for. And this is why it's good to watch this right now, even if you're not in a relationship that has financial problems. Just to let you know, when you're in the beginning of the relationship and this comes up, this is a trailer of what's coming next. So if we've been together 2 years, the dad's asked me for money 2 times. Probably over the next 2 years, he's going to ask for money 2 more times. You see what I'm saying? It's not going away. It's probably going to be habitual. And it creates a lot of strain on even a good relationship. Okay, so next one, number 4. They lied to you repeatedly when making a big purchase, and they know you wouldn't approve of a purchase that will put both of you in debt. So this is a big one. If someone lies or hides items that they've bought, the interesting thing about this, psychologically, it's kind of fun. Like a kid, right? A kid that bought something that they can't have. They're being a little bit naughty. Some people are driven by this. I know you think like, really, adults? Yeah, it's kind of exciting. So, I've never done this. I haven't been in a relationship like this. I've watched them secondhand, and it never ends. It's almost an addiction. But the part that really gets you is, why did you lie to me? And there's some people that think it's cute, like, oh, I found that dress you bought or this. But these are the kinds of things. This is habitual. It's impulsive. And where does it end? Because if you allow it in the first year, like, okay, you went out and bought a motorcycle and didn't tell me and we're both in debt. Okay, we can deal with that. The problem is if that person's not aware of how impulsive and selfish it is when you're a couple commingling funds, right? Not to mention, like, let's say someone goes out and buys a motorcycle on payments, right? And they can't afford it, right? They can't afford the motorcycle. It's one thing if they can, and you know they can't. Who's going to end up helping them out with that? So that's where the problem lies, okay? So just be aware of that. Number 5, they use credit cards that are in your name or both your names and run up the bill with no means to pay. This happens all the time, actually. I've had people complain to me about this a lot. It's like, cut up the card, cancel the card, stop the bleeding, okay? But if this happens, again, this is one of those things, this is what I've realized in coaching for almost 5 years now and talking to a lot of different people. Having a talk with someone about something they've been doing for a long time or they have validated in their head. A lot of times people validate their spending or their purchases because what you don't realize about money is that you are competing against an advertising machine, right? Someone goes to the mall. The mall gives this feeling, beautiful lighting, perfect temperature, models of the clothing outside. This is all done to get you to purchase things. So once you walk into a mall, unless you're a person that's just like, I don't buy things I don't need. There's people out there like that. But if you're kind of impressionable or if you're, value clothes or things, you're going to buy some stuff because the deck's stacked against you. So when you just have a talk with your fiance and say, hey, hon, we're getting married now. We need to really tighten up the buckle and watch what we buy. But for the last 5 years, she's been making impulsive purchases, running up credit card bills. Guess what? You talking to her one time will not erase that behavior. So just be aware of what you're getting into. Number 6, they shop for sport. If they do this online, even worse. They buy things they don't need or ever will use. So it's just like, this is what they do in their free time. You play basketball with your buddies and maybe go fishing, and she shops. And she thinks of it as something that, especially when people think they're finding deals. Okay, they're finding deals and they can't pass things up. Now, if they're doing this online, it's even more oblivious because there's no exercise involved. There's no getting out of the house. But the thing that gets to it is they buy things they don't really need or ever will use. And this is their pastime. This is their hobby. This is what they like to do. And a lot of times you probably had a prelude or a preview of this when you first started dating. So just be aware of it. If this is their favorite thing to do and they don't make enough money to support that, or they make enough money to support it, but then once they get married or they're in a relationship with you, they feel like they can spend more, but you don't shop for sport, beware. If 2 people shop for sport, you're probably going to go bankrupt. right? Number 7, this is a big one. They were spoiled by their parents and now expect the same from you. They'll even tell you, my parents used to buy me everything, or my dad did this for me, or my mom did this for me. And they're in their late 20s. Okay. If they don't get what they want, they throw a hissy fit like a teenager. Someone's like, oh, they're really immature. No, they're running a playbook that when they were young and they didn't get what they wanted, this works. They also are valuing things or items because that was something fun when they were a kid. This is how their parents conveyed love. And so when you're in the relationship, you're kind of like, oh, I'm not the type to spoil my girlfriend or buy things that I don't find of value. It's not going to register with them. So this also bleeds over to the fact that look at how the parents brought them up with money. Okay. Do they value it or not value it? Did they just buy them things? And if you're on the other end of this kind of relationship where you're the one that's spoiled by your parents and you're really upset with your partner not being more generous, then just make sure you're with someone that can support that habit. Number 8, this is big. I'm doing a lot of they. This is you. You lean on their parents to support you. I've had clients and coaching calls many a times where her parents or his parents are rich, whatever definition of that you want to give, and they help support your lifestyle. They pay for vacations, they help you buy houses, and probably at first you think, this is great. This is outstanding. This is a lot of fun. But what you're doing is you're putting yourself in a position to lean on them. And when you lean on them, if you do something they don't like, they can cut up the covert contract that you have going that's, oh, they're always going to help us. Because people do things for you with money, but most of the time they're doing it with the idea that you're going to cooperate with them. And parents are the same way. So if she or you have rich parents that you're leaning on, just beware that at any given moment, they could cut you off or they could demand something in lieu of their support. Bonus number 9. If you're honest with yourself, your number one reason to be with them is that they have money and they take care of you. So if you're honest with yourself and you're like, you know what, I'm going to stop lying. This is why I'm really with them. That's okay. But over time, when attraction dies down even more than it does, even more than the beginning, there's going to be problems in the relationships. Don't complain later on. This happens with the relationships that have a huge age gap. Okay. So there's 15, 20 years, which is way more common where the man's older than the woman. It's just the way it is. It's possible for the woman to be older than the man 15 years. I have clients that have that. But in most cases, it's a trade-off. A woman's in her 20, she's 25 and she's going out with a 45-year-old. A lot of time it's the trade-off for her beauty and youth is the fact that you'll be able to take care of her, spend money, and make her in a more secure position. What happens is these women are willing to get married. They're willing to have a long-term relationship. But when that guy gets to 60 years old and you're 45, it's a different age gap and they start complaining about it. Be honest with yourself. If that's the number one reason you're with that person, be honest with yourself. Don't lie about it. I've had people come to me, oh, I married a man that was 20 years older, but it wasn't for money. Whenever someone goes, denies something I didn't ask them, that means that really you're a little bit guilty of that. Okay. I'm not against that because there's a lot of people that come from poor circumstances, things I've never dealt with in my own life. And I can understand why you're doing it. Just be honest with yourself. Don't lie about it. Number 10, they buy expensive things that you don't value. So what do I mean by that? They buy something that you have no value and you feel like it's ridiculous. So let's say that your boyfriend buys baseball cards and he buys expensive baseball, basketball cards. If you don't value that or you think it's ridiculous, maybe in the beginning it won't be a problem, but 2-3 years down the road, if he's spending 10 grand on cards, it's going to be a problem. So it's really nice when you spend money or a lot of money on things that you both value, right? Such as a nice dinner, a nice car that you both can use. There's a difference to that. All right. I had one question yesterday in the chat, and I'll probably make another video about this in the future and maybe get into it a little deeper. But how do I speed up my recovery from my breakup? And what I would say to that is stop trying to speed it up, because that's going to frustrate you. Looking for the easy path, looking for the easy way to move things along, to feel better immediately. A lot of times there's no secret remedy that's going to make you better in a day. You searching for that's going to frustrate you. Now, what's going to get you to the promised land? In most cases, meeting someone else, meeting someone that makes you feel as good as that other person did or better. But here's the thing. If you're not in a position where you feel good about yourself, you're not ready to meet that person yet. So that is the promised land. That is the recovery, though. Meeting someone else and feeling like you don't need the other person. How do you speed that up? That's a different answer for different people. And that's why I encourage you to book a live coaching session with myself or send in your story and get some tailored advice. Stop getting general advice from the internet. All right. I hope that helps you. It's been a good live stream. It's curtains. I'll probably be back on deck tomorrow. Have a good one.